So thanks a lot, Sergio. And well, let me introduce this next roundtable. We're going to be talking about North American legal tech trends. And first, I'm just going to do a very short introduction, and then I will introduce the rest of my fellows panelists here. So, well, my name is Carlos García-Egocheaga. I'm the CEO of Lexsoft. We are a legal tech consultancy that is mainly present in Southern Europe and in Latin America. We also do quite a bit of knowledge management. We have our own knowledge management solution that right now is present in 4 of the global top 10 firms worldwide. So quite a bit of experience on that one too. And this just gives me the opportunity to introduce this roundtable. And as I said, we're going to be talking about North American legal tech trends. Funny enough, I was in Chicago about 3 weeks ago, and I was in this seminar that I was listening to Cheryl McKinnon, who is one of the principal analysts of Forrester, and she's in charge of electronic content management and info governance. So at the end of the day, she's in charge of the legal sector main solutions. And when she was asked, what are the main topics that we see during 2022 and what's going to be trendy in 2023 and forward, she was saying, she named these 2 topics. She said, first of all, hybrid work. Of course, after the pandemic, it's been mainly applied worldwide that nobody's going to be working 100% from the office, and at the same time, nobody's going to be working 100% from home. Also, we're going to see a lot of people moving around back and forth. And the second main topic that she said that was going to be, that was already a trend, and it was going to be even more trendy. It was knowledge management. Of course, knowledge management understood not in the classical meaning, but in a much more broad way. I mean, we're still going to be seeing a lot of knowledge banks, bound volumes, or Bibles, as we call them back in Europe. But also she was talking about all the relationship with the clients, all of the customer intelligence. What do we know about our clients? How do we relate with them? How we match our workforces from the law firm versus the lawyers that we find in, let's say, the corporate legal departments. Also, she was talking about what's inside the documents. We want to be able to extract what's inside documents. We want to be able to classify what's in the documents. We want to be able to understand what a document talks about. Of course, we're going to be using all of these technologies in things like due diligence and so on. But on the top of that, she was talking about, okay, we need to expand the knowledge management view into deals, into creating a closed banks, into understanding how we've done, I don't know, an M&A closing folder. How can we repeat those deals that we've done in firms or in corporate legal departments? At the end of the day, the main thing here is how can we increase productivity in firms? How can we go? How can we do a faster go-to-market? How can we do a cheaper go-to-market? So for that, what I have today is, for what me it is, a super 3 top-of-the-line colleagues in the best 3 legal tech firms worldwide, by all means. We have Introhive, we have iManage, we have Litera, by all means, the 3 largest ones. And I was going to introduce the rest of the panelists, the rest of the people that are going to be here with me in the roundtable. And for that, I'm sorry, I have prepared it, so I'm going to be reading it. So please bear with me for just a second. I'm going to do the introductions in alphabetical order. In this time of political correctness, I thought that was the only way of doing it. So let me start with Dan Carmel. He's the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at iManage. Since the start of 2022, Dan has been applying his experience to aesthetic issues, including market segment strategy in areas like litigation, legal departments, multi-product strategies like knowledge work automation, and of course, iManage continuing SaaS transformation. Over his 15 years with iManage, Dan has also been the Chief Product Officer as well as the Chief Marketing Officer. So right now, I think he's one of the most knowledgeable persons in his current role. If we talk about iManage, of course, iManage is known for transforming how professionals in legal, accounting, and financial services get work done by combining artificial intelligence, security, risk mitigations with market-leading document and email management. iManage automates routine cognitive tasks, provides powerful insights, and streamlines how professionals work, while maintaining the highest level of security and governance over critical client and corporate data. To give you some data, over 1 million professionals and more than 3,500 organizations over 65 countries rely on iManage to deliver great and secure client and corporate work. This means that approximately 2,500 law firms and 1,200 corporate legal departments are working with iManage today. Moving on, we have Jessica Bolf. She's the Senior Alliance at Introhive. She's the bar licensed attorney with 20 years of experience working in the legal industry. Prior of joining Introhive, Jessica worked in the legal, financial, and risk divisions at Thomson Reuters. She has a keen understanding of artificial intelligence-based products and solutions, and how these tools can help legal professionals in their daily tasks. She holds a Juris PhD from Valparaiso University of Law and a Bachelor of Science from Hope College. About Introhive, it was founded in 2012, and Introhive is the fastest growing B2B customer intelligence platform. Recently, it has been recognized as a category leader in sales intelligence and data quality management software by G2 Crowd. Also, as a top 10 fastest growing technology companies in the Deloitte's Fast 50 Awards, by the way, 3 years in a row. And moreover, as the MarTech 2020 Breakthrough Award winner for Best CRM Innovation. Introhive has grown really quickly. Right now has more than 350 employees in 7 different global offices. Supports more than 250,000 customers in over 90 different countries around the world. And finally, good friend Joe Combs. Well, they are all good friends, but Joe Combs, the Director of Global Partnerships at Litera. He coordinates a network of Litera partners worldwide. He has been working in the legal tech sector for more than 15 years for some of the most respected firms worldwide. Joe hails from Pacific Northwest and works daily with some of the largest legal tech value-added resellers, as well as strategic consultants around the US. Of course, talking a little bit about Litera, as a global leader in legal technology solutions, Litera provides document lifecycle solution across document drafting, transaction management, and governance. Litera software empowers lawyers from first drafts to final delivery, helping them work smarter and faster. Law firms use Litera software to unlock data and gain critical insights across their firm, including those around experience management, pricing, and objectives. So altogether, what we have here is, as I said, for me, as a legal professional, the top 3 companies worldwide, the ones that are really leading for the past 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, the legal tech business. And within those companies, we have 3 really good friends and 3 of the top people within their organizations. So if you allow me, let me start by asking you questions. And if you want, we can start alphabetically, then we'll go the other way around, then we'll mix it all together. And my idea is to ask you some questions, and you can give us your input on that. So for my first question, I was going to ask you, how do you see the investment trend in the legal tech sector right now? And let's start ladies first. Jessica, if you don't mind, please take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I see investment trends going towards productivity solutions. One of the things I think that we've been hearing across the legal industry is all about, of course, the Great Resignation and attrition in law firms. Over the past couple of years, the law firms have really seen a lot of turnover at both the mid-level and lower-level associate positions. So they're trying to really make sure that they can innovate. They have solutions in place to make people's work more productive, more efficient, and trying to really shore up on some of the overhead costs that did result in a lot of that workforce shifting. It has taken a hit on the bottom line, really, for these law firms. So kind of the same adage, trying to do more with less, trying to be very efficient, and trying to be very cost effective.
Excellent. Joe, will you give us your input on this?
Yeah, so I'd add to what Jessica says about productivity and extend that to include automation. So we see a lot of services being sped up through automation, through firms looking to leverage automation to offload what was previously manual tasks, especially around mergers and acquisitions. I think there is still a large investment being made around data protection, especially as firms move other document services to the cloud. And again, as Jessica said, I think client retention, staff retention, those are big concerns at law firms as we move into 2023.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Joe. Dan, what's your take on this?
Sure, Carlos. Thank you. Good morning. Well, I think certainly I'd agree with what Joe and Jessica said, excuse me, about the core issues and pressures. Law firms today are finding themselves in a more competitive environment with alternative legal service providers, with clients demanding greater and greater value for them for time and for the effort, and with the billing model changing in many places from being hourly to more fixed fee or joint goal oriented. So we see some big changes in how compensation is happening, how business is being won, as well as what Joe said about the attorneys. The attorneys today, right, and leading to the Great Resignation that was mentioned earlier as well, attorneys today don't want to be spending their time doing drudge work. And I think you find the Great Resignation is also driven and fueled by attorneys who feel they may not be used most effectively and getting the greatest value they can from the technology the firm has invested in. So we see the new way of working creating a gap, not only in terms of security, which needs to now be maintained at a higher level because people are working remotely for a majority of the time, but also in terms of how they're working. We have to build back the ability to connect with the firm, even if you're not in the firm, connect with firm knowledge, connect with firm experts, to be able to put back those connection touch points that have been taken away now by remote work. We need to automate, but we need to also automate with intelligence. The ability to give attorneys the ability to give attorneys a way to search for, as you said, Carlos, not just documents or information, but for much more specific forms of knowledge, requires that we, number one, enrich that content with additional information which we can do today using AI or a variety of other techniques, and then make it available globally and securely, right, while maintaining firm ethical walls and policies. So the challenge is remote access to the better knowledge for better search and better information at a point in time when you need that, right? Very important to surface this not as a big portfolio, but as a tool within a job to make the attorney more productive, to make them do higher level work, and therefore be more bound to the firm by the technology tools as opposed to turned off by a lack of technology tools. So we do see that at a bigger level, organizations are beginning to view technology for the first time in a while as something truly strategic. It plays a role in A, client satisfaction and meeting the needs of the new customer, B, facilitating the new ways of work, both in terms of connectivity with security, but also how do I use that connectivity to close that gap and get my mentorship and work with my partner and understand better what they're doing. And we really think that a lot of this is around, as you said, moving from managing content to really enriching that content with metadata and other types of technologies, and then making that deliver a better result, a higher impact result to the lawyer, which eliminates drudge work and improves retention. So we see it as a combination of factors that are influenced by customer requirements, by employee requirements, but that really change the role of technology today. And that's what we see firms coming back and looking to invest again, as you said, Carlos, in fundamental concepts like knowledge.
No, that's from listening to you three. It's funny that the same terms appear over and over and over. So I have the feeling that the investment trend is going to be a really mixed in between different technologies that have to work together. That at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is create a solution for lawyers, more than to sell them software, just to be able to actually provide them a solution. And this takes me to my next question. That of course, I mean, it makes complete sense, but I want to get your inputs on this, which is, why is productivity improvement so important in the legal industry as of right now? And if you don't mind, let's start as Joe.
Yeah, so you just said it. Productivity is being driven and becoming more and more important simply because clients are demanding it. So clients are demanding that law firms have an answer for how these complex projects are going to be managed that might be spanning across jurisdictions or years. And it's not enough for the firm just to say, oh, we have systems in place to do it. They actually have to have some sort of validation that these systems exist and that they can manage these projects. So productivity is becoming key for client retention, simply because clients are asking more questions as well. There are also, I think Jessica alluded to this, but profitability is becoming, is always a matter of concern, as Dan mentioned, changing billing models, etc. So law firms are looking at productivity as a way to drive value out of the firm. And as we mentioned, help retain staff. So, I think I read this, the statistic recently that said 75% of applicants wouldn't take a job at a law firm if the firm was using outdated technology. So those are kind of staggering statistics that really, I think, help drive innovation teams look to see not only how they can improve client services, but also how they can attract and retain key staff.
Excellent. Jessica, you were named in Joe's answer, so please take it away.
Sure. So I think two main reasons, really, profitability being one, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But I think the other is kind of the shift that we're seeing for what attorneys are even doing on a daily basis. Many of them want to now be seen as advisors in the truest sense of the word. So not just having a client come to you with a problem. I'm going to quickly try to solve that for you, do what you need, to have done to resolve that issue, but actually help you with your business problems, figure out best practices, figure out, frankly, how to avoid additional litigation, and really being that advisor. So with that, I think a lot of the attorneys are turning to different productivity tools, turning to different technologies to make them look like they are the expert. Now, coming back to that profitability piece, one of the things that we're hearing in the industry is the profit overall compared to the last couple of years is trending downward in many firms. Now, of course, to equity partners, that's a little bit concerning and alarming for this year. But compared to where we were in 2019, it's still higher. And if you actually drew that, line, kind of that diagonal line, you would still see that on the upward trend. Now, all of that said, I think the increased overhead pressure, the hybrid policies that are changing the way that attorneys are connecting with one another, connecting with their clients. People want to ensure that they aren't going to continue to lose ground. And so that is a concern moving into 2023 is how do we make sure that this is just kind of a blip on the radar from a profitability standpoint and not a downward trend in the market. Those larger firms are seeing a little bit more of that impact. And interestingly enough, I think we're seeing a higher profitability in some of your mid-sized firms right now.
Okay, that's fantastic. Dan, please, could you give us your view on this?
Sure. Challenging to build on all this good advice that's coming out. Let me try to frame the problem in a little different way. I think the industry is looking for productivity. There are two ways to achieve it. One is to do things faster and eliminate friction, and the other is to do things differently and use something to change the way the game is being played. And I think firms are looking for help and assistance in both areas. You know, the notion of productivity is improved a lot by shortening time, removing friction, and many of the traditional approaches where technology has been used. So certainly we see a lot of that. We focused on a little different angle around productivity, which is more around what Jessica was talking about, which is shifting the lawyer away from tactical work and more into, as you say, being viewed as an advisor. So what do I need to do that? I need, number one, access to the expertise that's in my firm and the ability to quickly find it, understand it, repurpose it in today's working world. And so we see technology playing an equally important role in making people or enabling people to work smarter. And so what does smarter mean? Smarter, again, means that you've got content that you can find more easily that may reflect the partner you're working for within a practice. You're able to find it based on changing legal conditions in the environment, based on attributes in the matter itself, such as industry or size or type of relationship. And all of this, as you mentioned earlier, Carlos, from Cheryl, requires new insights that are inside the document. And I see the ability of cracking that, as was mentioned earlier, and being able to bring that value out and make it explicit, and then bringing it within the moment that an attorney is needing it. So not just saying, hey, here's a generic thing, but hey, you're writing a brief. You know, let me allow you to be able to explore briefs that have been enriched by Thompson data or Pro-Law data that can now allow you to search deeper to get to the work product. I've heard attorneys say, look, I lack the mentorship. I want to find what's been authored by the 2 or 3 people who are top in my practice and be able to tap only into their expertise. So then when I produce my work product, it reflects more of what that team views as best practices. So the faster we can help attorneys in accomplishing these higher level jobs, as we talk about them, which really are goal oriented. I've got to write this brief. So it's not anymore like I've got to just edit a document. I've got to be able to write this brief front to back, beginning with a question of where are the best products I start with, and ending with a review cycle that would then allow us to approve that and make sure that it meets firm policy. And we see this higher level goal, higher value coming from, as I think you said, Carlos, integrating more. So we find ourselves as an organization pulling information from other systems, helping to bring that into context for the lawyer so they know how to view that information, and then putting it in front of them at the right time as that second dimension of make me work smarter.
That's amazing. You know, I was listening to you guys, and none of you guys said anything about profitability. When I was working in my PhD, and I was working actually in getting more productivity in legal firms. By the way, I never got my PhD, but profitability was you know, it was the main focus. Now, funny enough, I heard you talk about retention, becoming advisors, reducing the friction, making things different. So it's a really people-oriented type of drivers to improve productivity. It's fantastic. It's a completely different story than the one I would expect from this question. Thank you. Let me take you into a different area that, especially in the States and Canada, have quite a bit of importance, which is the public sector. So what is the role that government and the court system is playing right now in order to encourage tech adoption? So what do we see as drivers or as mandates from the public sector that, you know, are forcing us into this? Dan, please, why don't you start this time?
Sure. I'm not an expert on court systems, but I know that I see the downstream effects when I hear organizations having to download 50 or 70 different forms from different local jurisdictions to be able to submit the same type of legal motion. So I do see in some levels of the legal system a push toward trying to standardize both how electronic submissions are submitted and what the contents of those submissions are. So a lot of it for us is caused by fragmentation at different levels of the legal system here in the US, federal, state, and local. And each court system today is independent in how it interacts with its constituency. And we see that as a big area in which, we think that improvement in coordination and standardization is the way to go. That's one of the primary areas that we see the immediate impact. Obviously, there's changes in the process of law, in the underlying process, but I'm not an expert to be able to comment on that right now.
Okay, fantastic. Joe, why don't you give us your view?
Yeah, so it's funny, talking about the role of government and the courts in technology. I was reading this this review of one court judge in, I think it was Tennessee, who basically just took advantage of technology that exists today to basically provide an online calendar system so that people didn't have to come into the court to schedule these hearings or, just be more efficient about getting things scheduled. And we have to realize things like that can be a very simple change, but very effective. I think after COVID, there was a big shift in the way that online services were provided in the government sector. I think there are court systems now, like for small claim courts, for example, that have online portals where people can go on, file a claim. They use a bit of AI technology to assess the claim, to maybe some workflow routing, depending on what the claim is, and even in some cases provide settlements. So this is driving technology in big ways that I think before COVID we wouldn't have seen. And obviously hybrid working, being able to show up, do online hearings, all of this stuff is going to be transformational as we move forward in the legal sector.
Excellent. Jessica, please, could you give us your view?
Sure. So I think Joe really touched upon something with how the government sector is starting to embrace technology now, and the speed of which they've been forced to do that over the last couple of years. Early in my career, I spent some time in the Beltway, and I would not define government as being on the cutting edge of technology, despite them thinking perhaps they may be at the center of the universe. But I think the interesting thing was it forced them to quickly gravitate and adopt some of these solutions because they weren't able to do a lot of that in-person work that they had done previously. Now, I think, the other thing is as they've been searching for some of these tools, the government sector has also seen a reduction in headcount. So it is also forcing them into the world of automation and having to rapidly find, identify, and deploy these solutions that can work across the board. The other piece I think that we've seen where, government's starting to impact now in the private sector space is an increase in regulatory action. So, a few of my colleagues touched upon earlier some of the privacy related items. And while we don't have, the national level here in the US, we do have some of the neighboring jurisdictions that do. There are some states that have certain restrictions in place. So it's forcing, different, I think, pieces of technology to try to advance ahead of where some of those regulatory actions may go. And that'll be interesting to see how that continues to play out as more and more information is kept in the cloud. And we're really having to keep client data much more secure than we even did, 5 or 10 years ago.
Okay, so I recognize so many of these things that you say, about enforcing to use through regulatory actions, the complexity, the fragmentation. Actually, we do have that quite a bit. Interesting enough, the reduction of headcount is also making an impact, I guess, to all of us, both public and private sectors. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting what we're going to be seeing, coming from the public sector. The other main driver that we know that is a huge trend has to do with hybrid work, of course, and that takes me to my next question, which is that during and after the pandemic we have saw an increased interest in legal tech. But what about the innovation in the core of the business model of the legal industry? Is it really keeping up with the technology implementation? So are we really seeing that, that everybody's talking about legal tech, of course, and we have to be, more digitalized, but are we really changing the business model? Where is this going? And let's start with Dan this time.
Sure, thanks. Change in the legal industry does not come easily, as we all know. We're spending quite a few years here. It's often inspired by external forces, as was just mentioned, in terms of government changes. And so I think some of the biggest changes in the legal model are driven today by the changing players in the legal industry. Predominantly the introduction and growth of alternative legal service providers. And that could also include non-traditional firm providers like the Big Four, who I know are very active in Europe and could be so in the United States eventually as well. So we see the introduction of alternative legal service providers who focus on technology-enabled solutions, on repeatability, on bringing the automation we talked about earlier to specific areas as beginning to commoditize, right, certain parts of the law. And in those areas, law firms definitely are responding by creating their own alliances with these providers to take advantage of that, by creating alternative providers themselves, and by rearranging their economic reward away from the billable hour and toward other means. So that's a pretty fundamental change. When you move to fixed price work per item, productivity improvements, automation, knowledge-driven productivity improvements all add up to that profitability goal you wanted to hear about earlier, Carlos, and ultimately changes the behaviors in the firm. I think that's one of the bigger changes. It's not new. It's been in for the last 10 or 15 years, but certainly has gained acceptance and has gained, continues to gain attractiveness due to the economic advantages. What does that mean for law firms? It means you've got to move higher, like you said earlier, more to the advisory area, more to be able to add higher value, which then requires what? Tools that are capable of driving higher value thinking and higher value insights in a law firm. And I think that's, again, where you see the tech trends moving as we look to the future. So those are some of the biggest ones that I see, driven by change in the market, to a change in pricing, to carving up the portfolio, to changing the role of many firms. And you see firms doing this, as you said, by moving more toward advisory.
Excellent. So Jessica, could you please tell us what you think?
It was very well said. I'll just probably add a few more points to the point that was just made. And with advisory, turning that from that reactionary model into the proactive one. So trying to find information and have that information readily available at your fingertips when you need it, to analyze it, and then be able to explain what that action should be or the best practice that they actually need to take. So again, moving that away from the more traditional role of something has happened, you call your attorney, fix my problem, to the attorney taking on that investigative work, if you will, to really, distill how they can change that business model and what do they need to tell their clients to actually have more profitability, avoid that litigation, identify new areas of opportunity, et cetera. Each one of those use cases is going to be a little bit different depending on who you're advising. But I think that role and that shift in business model is going to lead to more of a need in different areas for those technology solutions to uncover that information quickly.
Excellent. Joe, please, could you finish this up?
Yeah, I'm going to expand on what both Dan and Jessica said. We're discussing two trends that I see. One is the rise of the allied professionals or the non-lawyers supporting these big projects across the firm to provide services outside of what the legal services lawyers would traditionally provide, but providing project management services, but providing infrastructure services, security services, being able to drive new business across the firm in a way that having a reliance on just lawyers couldn't achieve in the past. I think we're on track for either this year or next year to have nearly 40% of firms' employees will be these sorts of allied professionals or non-lawyers. And I think it's driving innovation across the firm in lots of different ways. The second trend, I think, is exactly what was alluded to regarding the move. It's the extension of what firms do from the daily practice of law to looking at ways to drive insights from the business of law. And what I mean by that is, firms have focused so much on implementing desktop solutions that help with productivity or security systems that help secure their data as they move to the cloud, for data protection services. And now I think the big trend in legal tech will be this year and upcoming years will be the implementation of services that extract data stored across the firm that gives the firm, not necessarily the lawyer, but the firm insights about the firm's practices. And that could include intelligence or experience management, insights that can be promoted or put into promotions for new business, or proposals for new business, excuse me. It could be aligning billing practices based on past revenue, aligning firm objectives with individuals across the firms to make sure that everybody's working towards the same goal and being compensated or well rewarded. All of these insights, again, that I think firms are looking at, not just to innovate around client services, but again, help drive firm success and client and employee retention. Wow,
fantastic! We went from I guess the bottom part of the business, from the commoditized law and making the access to legal services much cheaper and much standard for everybody, into a different part, which is how firms are changing these days in the business model, trying to drive higher values, trying to be proactive, telling their clients what they need to know before actually they ask for it. Of course, having a bunch of non-lawyers working in creating these new services that right now we can give, not as legal professional, but as a firm that we can have. And of course, this will take us into experience management. So that has to do a lot with knowing your own internal people and also the people that they have worked for. Of course, this will be able to, or will allow us to promote new business. And one thing that you guys talked about a little bit also is the new pricing models. How we can understand better what we have done in order to provide better and more interesting price models for our clients. So that's fantastic. So we coming here to an end, but of course, I have to ask. So what is the must-have legal tech stack for every lawyer in 2022? Joe, since you were the last one to talk, please start us up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously anything that goes in the cloud is essential, I think, in 2022, 2023. The products and services that are provided on-prem are getting more and more limited. So firms, in order to utilize all the kind of innovations and solutions that we talked about today, they're going to have a cloud. They're going to have to migrate to cloud quicker rather than later. I think the innovative stuff we talked about in terms of data discovery, experience management, that is going to be an important stack that firms will introduce. And along with that comes a lot of data discovery, right? So the data that's being presented is only as good as the data across the firm. So there's going to be lots of services that require a lot of data cleanup to get that information ready to be surfaced correctly. And then advisory services as well.
Excellent. Dan, please What are your views on this?
Sure. As much as I love productivity, and I'd love to be able to focus on that, the first concern of every firm today is being able to manage content securely, ensure that it ends up in the right place and not in the wrong place, maintain governance over that content, which means ethical walls and other kinds of security and access requirements. And until you can, and more today because of cloud, as Joe said, being able to geo-isolate content in different regimes based on either firm policy or on local laws and requirements. So if you can't, unfortunately, you can't make it more productive until you make it sufficiently safe, easy to access, and also I would add in today's tech stack, secure and accessible on mobile devices. Once you've accomplished that, you've got a secure environment and governed environment within which to work. We really see the must-haves as some of the more essential real-time collaboration tools, things like co-authoring, which we've seen have a big impact on both attorney satisfaction and personal productivity. We think that obviously search and the ability to get to right content is another really essential point. And I will say that with the change in work, and I don't think the remote work component is going to change anytime soon for lawyers. I think we are in a long-term environment where people are disconnected from one another in a physical way. I think finding a way to reconnect the office in a way that allows you to accomplish many of the things you used to do face-to-face, especially when working on a professional matter, like checking in. Where are we on this? What's happening with this? We need to be considering how that's going to be done when you can no longer just pop your head around the corner and ask the question. And so we've been working on a new area of matter-centric checklists that allows organizations to embody their best practices in checklist templates or best practice templates. So you capture expertise, you expose that expertise asynchronously to people so everybody immediately can see what the status of things are through looking at this, and thereby start to answer some of the questions that today's remote environment doesn't quite do. Slack is fine for messaging, but it's not going to allow you to track the current status of a whole set of items while respecting all that security and governance that you need as an organization. And we think that's a new gap that's created by this new way of working that technology needs to step up and fill.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Jessica, please, could you tell us your views?
Certainly. So I think it's going to be client and firm intelligence related tools that will become a must-have. So I think all the different items we've touched upon, from billing models, connecting with your employees in a hybrid environment, all of that needs to be surfaced and uncovered across the firm in order to make those decisions. So you need to have that financial data. You need to determine, what areas of your practice are actually profitable. Where across my current portfolio of clients that I have, might I identify some white space opportunities that I can actually grow those accounts, knowing that it takes significantly more effort to identify a brand new client than actually grow your existing portfolio. So any of those types of tools, I think, are going to become the must-have into 2023. But coupled with that is a very key item, which is tools that can play well with existing software at the firm. Everybody's had a ton of change. To a certain extent, I think we're all kind of sick of hearing about the amount of change over the last couple of years. So the very last thing people want is a completely new system that radicalizes the way that they're doing their work. They want some degree of comfort, of normalcy in their day-to-day operations. So if you can find those types of intelligence tools where the attorneys are doing their daily work, be it in email, be it in Teams, be it in Slack, be it in a variety of different tools, and even some of the CRMs, dare we say the law firms are using some of them. Those types of tools, I think, are going to be more successful simply because it's not going to increase the learning curve for the attorneys to actually leverage that software at the firm.
Excellent. So that's fantastic. So we went from the cloud and the security and the info governance and so on, that obviously is a must, to how we reconnect the office, how we make sure that we connect lawyers together, how we use firm intelligence to understand our own co-workers and to understand people. I love what you just said, Jessica, about those tools that play well among the rest of the things. We already had all of us enough change over these 2 past years. I think we are all a little bit overwhelmed by it. And since we have some minutes left, I must ask this question. I mean, we have, for me, as a legal tech professional that has been almost 20 years in the market, the top 3 legal tech companies worldwide present today here. So could you please give us a little pitch on what is your your best product, your best solution that you have for 2023 coming up? If you were to convince us of this is a must-have from our company, what will it be from each of you guys? Jessica, let's start with you, and let's finish the talk here.
Sure. So we actually, perfect timing, we just rolled this out on Halloween a couple of days ago now. We have out-of-the-box reports coming in Power BI and Tableau and some of the other tools that firms are used to using, taking client and firm intelligence from just a data output into what do I do next? Now what? So answering that question of now what, it's simply not enough to just identify the data, give them an output of the results, but really take that firm intelligence, that client intelligence, and be able to actually formulate an action plan using those reports in a very digestible format and something that is visually pleasing and easy to read.
Excellent, fantastic. Dan, please, can you tell us?
Sure, you challenge a parent. You challenge me to make a choice between things. Look, the number one move organizations can make in 2023 is get to the cloud, okay, across the board. On our platform, on anyone else's, where we are putting all our new functionality, all our greatest capabilities, all our best integrations is in the cloud and with Work 10. So if you're not current, the primary goal is get current because it enables so much more. One of the things it enables is a new capability we just announced at Connect Live, which is called Tracker, which is matter-centric and matter-secured knowledge checklists. And it allows an organization to take paper checklists or Excel checklists, put them in iManage, organize them by matter. It allows people to immediately see the status of each of those actions through small icons and be able to immediately inform you of, again, the question, where are we? That is the beginning of an expansion. You're going to see more coming on the back of that, more intelligence, more automation. But it's a great way to take knowledge and expertise that's in people's heads, make it standardized, firm-wide, ensure those steps get done because now you have a record of that, and ultimately improve on that process, change your template, and move the organization forward. So we think that's an exciting new capability that's really just the first step of many more to come.
Fantastic, Dan. And Joe, please.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that a little bit differently. But one of the things we're going to be focusing on in 2023 as a company is the move away from offering attorneys point products for our productivity solutions to offering them a unified solution around Litera Desktop, which is a collection of solutions that assist lawyers with the document production lifecycle from the creation stage all the way to final production and delivery. And having Litera Desktop basically ensures that IT departments can basically deploy one tool that will install one set of components, one set of one ribbon, that can then be, the functionality can be accessed through the Word toolbar in a functional way so that lawyers can be assisted with the Litera tool sets that are installed across that document lifecycle. So again, really assisting with the productivity gains that lawyers can make, and also with the security gains that they can make by making sure that their work content is secured and corrected.
Well, amazing roundtable. I myself, I learned a bunch. It's an absolute pleasure to have 3 great companies and 3 great friends that we've known each other for ages, talking about what's coming, especially from North America. That seems, in general, is where everything usually begins, and then the rest of the world get to see it. So fantastic getting your views on what's going on. And once again, thank you very much for taking the time. And let's go back to the Global Legal Tech Hub. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos.